Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 10. We're finally on double digits, yay! So, in this episode, we're going to be talking about how to identify the leader within you. Because as you know, Gen Z has been transforming the workplace, and it's not only important to be able to identify how to become a leader, but it's also actually really crucial to be able to identify true leaders and look up to positive role models. So for today's chat, I'll be drinking an iced chai from Balzac's Coffee Club, and with that said, let's get started. Okay, folks, so this episode that we're going to be having today, it's actually inspired by a coffee chat that I had with somebody last week who had over 35 years of experience in both talent management and organizational development. And as we were chatting, I asked her who she thinks a good or a leader is. And she responds by saying that a good leader is somebody who has great communication skills, they're able to collaborate with a team, they play some sort of a mentorship role, and they're able to overcome any sort of obstacle in their way. So they treat obstacles as problems that they just need to overcome and solve, right? And she also said that leaders are actually not independent, but they work with a team. And I was thinking about her definition for a while, and I agreed with a lot of what she said, but I realized that, I think that a leader is actually a lot more than that. And in a few words, if I were to describe what my definition is, I would say that a leader is a closed circuit. And, well, what do I mean by that, right? Well, I mean that a leader is a fully integrated human being who looks internally for guidance instead of externally, and they can tap into any sort of dimension of the humankind that they need in order to tackle a problem. In other words, they're also self-sufficient. And self-sufficient and independence, they're different and the same, right? I would say self-sufficient is a really important skill to have as a leader, actually, because it's what makes you stand out and allows you to make effective and strategic decisions, not only for yourself, but also for your team. Something that really comes to mind when I say this is the difference between manipulation and inspiration, right? Because if you're a self-sufficient leader, what you won't do is you won't manipulate other people in order to get them to do something. You'll only inspire them. Because if you're self-sufficient, you won't actually need anybody to do something for you. You know that you can fill that role, you can tap into another dimension if you need to, and you can get that done. So that's why I think being self-sufficient as a leader is absolutely critical, because it allows you to inspire versus manipulate. And something else about a leader, I would say, is that they're confident, they're not insecure, and they know their worth. And I think this is really critical. You know why? Because if you're somebody who knows your worth, you won't be insecure or you won't feel like intimidated when somebody else comes around and they bring something valuable to the table. And I say this because there's a lot of the times where, people feel a little bit intimidated and insecure when somebody approaches them or somebody approaches their team and their team starts to look up to them, I feel. Which actually brings me to another quality that a good leader has, and that is giving people credit for what they do. Because if you're a good leader and you're not insecure about yourself, you're gonna give credit where it's due, whether that's internally or externally. Because you're not afraid of what you bring to the table, you know your worth, you know what value you have, and when you know the value that you bring to the table, you are more confident and supportive of everybody around you, and you accept their light, and you accept what they bring to the table as well. So that's something else you'll notice about a good leader. And you know what makes it really challenging to even stand by this true definition of leader? It's the fact that the word leader is being just thrown around everywhere lately. Like this one time I was looking at a job application and then they were saying something about how you look up to the leaders in the company. And I was like, okay, but which one are leaders? Because the truth is not everybody is a leader. So perhaps we can be a little bit more specific and identify where the leaders really are. I feel like that a common misunderstanding that we have in our society is that if somebody has a title that shows superiority, that they're automatically a leader. But the sad and hard truth is that if you need a title to call yourself a leader, then you're actually not a leader. And something else that I really want to shine to light is how she said that great communication is an asset to good leadership, right? I 100% agree with her, but I do think that it's necessary for us to actually define what good communication is. Because currently we see a lot of different styles of communication, and I can tell you that it's definitely not having like hour-long conversations with multiple descriptive words and saying the same thing over and over again, just in different ways, you know? Good communication to me is being concise, being articulate, and delivering a meaningful message. Okay, and now that we've identified how to identify who a true leader is, let's move on to something else that was discussed during our coffee chat. So we started talking about the different leadership models, and she said that you can break those down into two categories. She said that there's corporate leaders and there's entrepreneurial leaders. And she described entrepreneurial leaders as people who take more risks, people who are go-getters, and people who have more of an owner mentality. And she said that corporate leaders, they are a little bit more risk averse and that they're more cause and effect. And I thought about that and I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But I was like, you know what? Those aren't the most accurate representation of all the leaders out there. So I thought about it a little bit more and I came up with my own system and my own model for the types of leaders. And again, I said that there's two categories of types of leaders. I would say that there are healthy leaders and there are unhealthy leaders. And under both categories, you can actually branch off into pros and cons for both. What you would notice is under the healthy category, there's more pros and there's little to almost no cons, okay? And under the unhealthy category, you see that the pros are more short term and the cons are more long term, okay? And when you branch it off like that, what you'd realize is that entrepreneurial type of leaders, they actually fit under the healthy category. And another model that would fit under the healthy category is the feminine leadership model. And when I say this, I don't just mean because you think feminine, it's not just necessarily female. Feminine is a type of energy. All of us actually embody both feminine and masculine energy. And feminine energy encompasses things like compassion, empathy, collaboration, things like that, okay? So that's what I mean by feminine energy. And something else that I would place under the healthy leadership model is natural leaders, actually, because natural leaders are what our entire system is based off of. And when you're able to embody these qualities and the skills of a natural leader, that's when you can consider yourself a leader. And if you fail to do so, then you become an unhealthy leader, right? And speaking of unhealthy leadership, the reason that I would say corporate leadership is part of this model is not because it's bad to be risk averse or it's bad to have cause and effect kind of thinking. It's actually just because of the structure that leads you to a leadership role in a corporate system. Think about it. How do you get up to a leadership role in a corporate system? What you do is you just climb the corporate ladder. Do you see a problem with that? Because what I notice is that when people go from a technical role and completely switch into a leadership role is that not only can they not do it properly, but at that point, if everybody continues to do it like that, not based on merit, what you're doing is you're actually normalizing mediocrity. And suddenly we look up to people who are just mediocre as leaders, which is faulty. And not actually just corporate leaders would I place under the unhealthy category, but I would also place figureheads under that category, okay? So a figurehead is somebody who you think is a leader, but they actually have no sort of power at all. And if you think about it, there's a lot of people out there that are simply figureheads who we for some reason look up to. So when you're able to identify, healthy versus unhealthy and how to identify who a true leader is, you're able to distinguish between a true leader and a figurehead. Okay, so based on everything I just said, notice how I said nothing about age playing a factor in leadership. And yet there's so many statements out there talking about how Gen Z, they're either too young or too inexperienced to be leaders. So to my fellow Gen Zs, here are a few ways that you can challenge this notion and identify the leaders inside of you. So number one, are you developing your emotional intelligence? Number two, ask yourself how you're challenging the status quo or how you're bringing fresh perspective to the table. And number three, look around you, look at your surroundings, and ask yourself how many people are inspired by you. And with that, folks, I'll see you next time.
This program is meant for entertainment purposes only. It is not meant to replace any educational programs or represent a professional coaching program. All examples provided by the author and speaker are purely anecdotal and are not meant to represent any institutions or companies in affiliation with the creator.